The Seven Wheels of Ignorance, a reflection on Sri Aurobindo's The Life Divine work, where he talks about the ignorances, the seven wheels of ignorances. Vanakkam everyone. Today I like to share a profound insight from one of the greatest philosophical works of modern India, The Life Divine by Sri Aurobindo. What you When you hear the word ignorance, we usually think of someone who lacks education or knowledge. But for Sri Aurobindo, it means something much deeper. A person may have multiple degrees, may have traveled around the world, could run a successful business and teach others, but still live in complete ignorance. Because ignorance is not the absence of information, knowledge, or skill. As per Sri Aurobindo, ignorance is forgetting who we truly are. These veils prevents us from seeing reality as it truly is and from living the full potential of our humanity. Today, I invite you not to just simply understand these ignorances intellectually, their names and other kind of things, but ask yourself the question, which of these veils do I leave behind? Here we start. The first of the illusion of fragments, the original ignorance coined by Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo says we are ignorant of the absolute, the source of all existence. Instead, we make fragments for the whole. We mistake fragments for the whole. We identify ourselves with our profession, our nationality, our beliefs, our successes, our failures. These are all parts, bits, and pieces of who we are. And also, we identify ourselves. I'm a teacher, I'm a father, I'm successful, I'm failure. But these are all just roles, and these roles can change anytime and every time, and they are not our deepest identity. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean and believing that the single wave that you see is the entire ocean. That is how we often understand ourselves, my friends. We take a bit of who we are to be that whole wholeness of who we are. So now I ask you for a reflection. You can pause the video or comment below where I have mistaken a part of myself for my whole identity. The second illusion is the illusion of time, the cosmic ignorance. We become absorbed in calendars, deadlines, birthdays, aging. We believe reality is only what's happening today. Yet, every moment of deep love, beauty, silence reminds us of something timelessness inside of you. Sri Aurobindo tells us that behind the changing universe exists an eternal, unchanging self. Perhaps you have experienced this while watching a sunrise, sitting in meditation, holding a newborn, or talking to your beloved. For that brief moment, time completely disappears. The illusion of time shatters. I ask you this question when ask yourself this question when I have experienced something timeless. The illusion of separation, the egoistic ignorance. This may be one of the greatest illusion of all. We believe we are separate. We believe we are separate from nature, from one another, and sometimes from life itself. And how pitiful state that is. Modern neuroscience tells us our nervous system regulate one another. Yoga tells us we are one consciousness expressing itself through many forms. And Sri Aurobindo reminds us that our deepest nature is universal. Every breath we take comes from the trees. Every meal comes from through countless unseen hands. Every relationship shapes who we become. I hope you agree to this. Perhaps we have never been truly separate. Imagine this. And this is the ultimate truth. Now I ask you a question for reflect to reflect, ask yourself the question, where in my life do I experience connection? And that leads us to the fourth illusion, the illusion of this lifetime. Sri Aurobindo talks about it as temporal ignorance. We often believe our current story is the entire story. My life began here, my future ends there. But Sri Aurobindo invites us to see ourselves as being in a continuous evolution. Every challenge, every relationship, every success, every failure becomes part of a much greater and larger journey. We are unfinished, Sri Aurobindo says, and that is beautiful. Now, the reflective question you ask yourself is, how would my life change if I saw it as part of a larger journey and not just this one problem, one day that I have trouble with? The fifth one is living on the surface, the psychological ignorance. Most of us know only a small surface layer of ourselves. We know our thoughts, sometimes our emotions, but beneath them lie intuition, subconsciousness, patterns, deep creativity, and what Sri Aurobindo calls the deeper consciousness. Yoga is an invitation to explore these deeper layers. Meditation is not about escaping the mind, my friends. It's about discovering that we are more than the mind. Now, reflect this question and ask yourself, what deeper wisdom within me have I not yet learned to trust? The sixth ignorance is mistaking the instrument for the musician. The constitutional ignorance, as by Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo says we mistake the body, the life force, and the mind for our entire being. Imagine a violin believing it is the musician, that it is the one that is producing the music. Yes, violin is beautiful. Yes, violin is needed, but it is only just an instrument. Our body is precious, our mind are extraordinary, our emotions are important. No denying in any of this, but perhaps they are just instruments. They are the instruments that's played by a deeper consciousness which expresses itself. Yoga teaches us to care for these instruments while remembering they are not the whole of who we are. Ask yourself this question. What if I am the awareness that observes my thoughts rather than thoughts themselves? You go from an experiencer to a witness. Living without freedom is the last veil, the practical ignorance. When all the previous ignorances come together, they shape the way we live. We chase success but forget peace. We seek pleasure but miss fulfillment. We become busy without becoming wiser. We react instead of responding. We search everywhere except within. Sri Aurobindo calls this practical ignorance because it affects every decision we make. It is not merely philosophical, my friends. It's deeply practical. It determines the quality of our everyday life. Now, I ask you to reflect on this question. What one habit in my day no longer serves the person I wish to become? Sri Aurobindo concludes with something deeply hopeful. Of course, he is Sri Aurobindo. He has given us the solutions, and definitely hope is something. He tells us that these veils are permanent. Oof. They can be gradually lifted. That is the true purpose of yoga. Not simple flexibility, my friends, not merely reflections, not relaxations, not even self improvement. That's a very strong word. Yoga is the conscious process of remembering our wholesomeness. Every breath, every meditation, every act of compassion, every moment of awareness lifts another veil, allows us to become less ignorant little by little until we begin to live from a deeper consciousness. Let's conclude this conversation with a closing meditation. As we end today, I would like to leave you with one thought. Perhaps the purpose of life is not to become someone else. Perhaps it is to gently remove the layers, the veils, the ignorances that prevents us from recognizing who we of who we have been always. Sri Aurobindo devoted his life to exploring the evolution of human consciousness. His invitation was not simply to believe these ideas. That is why I like Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, because they want us to experience them. So this week, ask yourself one simple question every day. Which ignorance, which veil am I living behind today? And what practice through yoga, meditation, kindness, self awareness, what practice can help me lift it? Because every sincere step towards awareness is a step towards freedom. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, this is Bala signing off here from Auroville. Do subscribe, share, and maybe send this video to someone who like to understand the ignorances that Sri Aurobindo was talking about. Namaste, Nandri, Vanakkam.